Hello again, Steve here, and I wish to make this video a reply or some commentary or some comments on what came to me as the result of watching Stefan Molyneux's recent video about his account or his feedback on the movie CHAPPAQUIDDICK, which I haven't watched, but a lot of things came out of just watching his video, and I thought I would bring them forward. Well, first of all, one of the things that comes to me is the importance of learning from these situations, of the importance to be able to override our animal instincts. I mean, this Kennedy guy, seemed to be running on a level of, he would do anything for self-preservation, including letting somebody drown, suffocate in her own air bubble, and go to work, systematically go to work to cover everything up. Just unbelievable. And the other thing that came to me through this is the depth of Stefan's thinking, and I don't say this about Stefan to knock the guy at all, because I think he is genuine. He muses in this video about possibly going back to his Christian roots, which I don't think is going to happen, but I can relate in a way because I've come out of a very similar upbringing in terms of religion. He's Anglican, I believe. He grew up in that. Mine was a version of Catholicism, which is what Anglicanism is. It's basically an offshoot of Catholicism. In fact, in the Mass, the Anglican Mass, they say that this is one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. They say it's the same Mass, and the Anglican priests or the ministers or whatever are the only ministers in any of the other Christian sects that basically just have to sign on the dotted line and they can become Catholic priests, because they're completely accepted as legitimate. They're considered as part of the greater Catholic diaspora, basically. And there are lots of factions within Catholicism, no question about it. And I've seen the difference between my dad and other people, even within my family, and they're both Catholics. There are factions within the Catholic Church, for example, the Opus Dei, which are a lay order, and the Carmelites, which are a religious order, and they kind of hate each other. They don't really get along. I mean, they condemn one another, and they're both supposedly Catholics. Anyways, that's an aside. But no, when I was thinking about Stefan in this sort of thing, I remember somebody once told me that this certain Jew, was an atheist. And I said, well, how does that make any sense whatsoever? Isn't Judaism a religion? How can you be an atheist religious person and your religion has a God? And but of course, there's all these special categories for Jews. I don't really understand it. So I said, okay, if I ever fill out a census again, I'm going to write in there Catholic atheist, because if a Jew could be an atheist, why couldn't a Catholic? And that's what I see Stefan as in a way, because he relates, some of his most loyal fans are Christians, and he's this atheist, So I can sort of feel for that. But what a lot of people don't understand about Catholicism is there are factions within Catholicism who, especially in the theologian class of thinkers, who, if you hear them talk, they don't sound religious in a Christian sense. And this is probably one of the reasons why a lot of Protestants, especially American Protestantism, Baptists and whatnot, they see Catholics as sort of not Christian at all. In fact, they'll even use the term Catholic and Christian, whereas it's really odd. But if you listen to some of these theologians, they sound like a mix of pragmatic paganism mixed with Greek philosophy. I mean, really, seriously. And a sister of mine, actually, who is very religious, she gave me this book a few years ago, which I did read, but it's been a while and I can't really remember what it was about. But Luigi Giussani, The Religious Sense. But the guy he's kind of a Catholic thinker, I guess you would say, but coming at it from a very pragmatic standpoint, because he was a teacher for many, many years who had I'm just going to read in the back here one paragraph, and it's really gives you an idea of the possibilities that can come from religion, at least as a starting point, right? Okay, the fruit of many years of dialogue with students, The Religious Sense offers a spiritual path to meaning in life. Luigi Giussani challenges us to break through the layers of opinion and judgment that obscure happiness and to penetrate experience, to discover our true ourselves. Luigi Giussani believes that the tools for self-discovery are within us, and through reason and openness we can understand and finally celebrate life. Now, does that sound like some sort of a Bible thumper? Not really, right? It sounds like pretty pragmatic philosophy and psychology running on. And, so this is kind of where I come from out of religion. I remember as a kid, my dad, I was never sure what he believed in because he was more orthodox. He was more of an Orthodox Catholic. He believed in certain things that were literally historically true. But I remember being at Mass one time when I was a little kid, and the priest did this, forget what they call it. It's not the homily, but it's the, it's the main section where he stands up and goes off script. Basically, he refers back to the Bible. Sermon. He gave his sermon. And he talked there, and he talked about, it was something about the story of Adam and Eve. And he explicitly told us that this is not historically true. I mean, he says the people that think it's historically true, they're off track because they might not learn about what's going on in terms of the story, in terms of what's going on within us. He said it's just a story, not unlike Peter Pan or something like that we can learn something from. And I remember as a kid, I was going, holy smokes, that's amazing. That's amazing, right? It's a book that we use to learn from, but we don't have to mean that it's historically accurate. And I remember asking my dad about that later because we used to have catechism every Sunday after church. And my dad, he really just shot off in a different direction, didn't answer the question. And I don't think we went back to that church for a while because Dad had the habit of going from one church to another church because he wouldn't like this guy for a while because there was a lot of, every once in a while you'd get a thinker in there or somebody who wasn't as orthodox. But anyways, this leads me to another way of my thinking that I've come to as a result of this sort of thing and connecting philosophy with religion and how they can blend together. And when people can, shake off the tendency to have to be right all the time. Yes, if every word in the Bible or these verses are absolutely correct and these ones are to be interpreted and so on, if we can shake that sense off of ourselves and just begin to think, like even as orthodox as Jesse Lee Peterson is, at least he says, you know what, you got to feel, like what's coming from inside. Is it just coming from the book? If it's just coming from the book and you're going to believe it, no, you have to interpret it. And this is where hopefully have a chance to get into a little bit of this later. But there was a friend of mine who I visited when I did my epic walk of 8,000 kilometers a few years ago. He was very much into the freedom movement as I am. We had a great discussion that night, and a few weeks later I got a message from his wife that he had passed away. He had this massive coronary, and it was really quite shocking. I was out on my walk and I asked her, hey, do you want me to come back and go to the funeral and whatnot? And she realized what I was up to, and she said, no, everything's handled and so on. But anyways, I remember she posted something on my Facebook a while back around that time. She said, the difference between God and good is that God is missing one O. And I had thought about that. And when I really began to delve into philosophy, I realized that philosophy really, to be honest, is the pursuit of the good, right? Is what is true. And then, of course, what flows from that is what is moral and so on, what is ethical, right? So, and when we relate it to ourselves, what is good for us is the acknowledgement of our holistic health, right? The whole aspect of ourselves. If we're going to reject an aspect of ourselves, say if we're going to reject reason, we're going to reject our ability, and we're going to take this book and say, okay, because what's-his-name said it, and somebody said it was inspired by God, it's true. Well, at that moment, we've rejected our reasoning. We've rejected an aspect of ourselves who the creationists will say God created. So God gave us this ability to reason, and then we're rejecting it. We are rejecting a part of ourselves, which is good. We're rejecting part of the good. We're rejecting, you could say in the religious sense, we're rejecting God. And we're allowing another spirit, which from the religious way of speaking, if you look it up in the etymology, these demons and whatever, they're like foreign spirits. They're spirits that dwell within us. So if we're going to reject an aspect of ourselves, like reason, we are accepting in a sort of a demon within ourselves, and then we can go astray. And we see through this story of CHAPPAQUIDDICK, whatever it's called, how perverted some people can become, like completely fucked up, when they reject parts of themselves and they fall for this, I gotta cover this up because my family, because career, because status, because blah, blah, blah. There's no good in all that. It's a rejection of what's being said inside, and the amount of cover-up it takes to be able to do that is just amazing. According to the story, anyways, if it's true, and of course there's lots of other stories in the world where people just go off the rails because they reject things. So I would say to accept God, in a way, is to accept the goodness, to accept what is wholesome for us. And wholesome for us is, acknowledgement of our rationality, taking care of our body, making sure that we can somehow reconcile what's going on with our emotions and realize who's in control and whatever. And the religious people, even though they might not admit this is what makes sense to me. That is the acceptance of the Holy Spirit, right? The Holy Spirit, if you look up what is holy, the word holy, look up the etymology, it means wholesome and healthy, right? And the Spirit is what gives life to us. That's like, spirit means, it's right in the word respiration, respiration, right? It's that, it's in the ancients, so they're breathing this unknown, like this godly character, this air all around, and that respirating, it's the giver of life, right? So the Holy Spirit is the complete health, right? And if we throw some of that out, we're rejecting the Holy Spirit. We only have a partial spirit, which is the demon, you might say, right? That's just my way of thinking anyways. And of course this, if you look up the demon and devils and these words and where they derive and so on, a lot of it is slanderer, blasphemer, and so on. It's like this person who's throwing out this, that we've allowed something into us, metaphorically speaking, which then throws out the good, right? And we become corrupted. So, so the story of this Kennedy guy is a story of somebody, from what I can see, who is utterly corrupted. I mean, to the point of allowing a woman to, and who knows how deliberate it was, I don't know, but by the look of it, it was like, wow, to allow this to have happened is just astounding. So the question is, what can we learn from this? Well, as I've been saying a few times on a few videos, is to accept, or to accept health as, how did I say it? As our moral duty, right? Our health, and a lot of times, even the word health gets perverted. We think of, let's go to the hospital to get some health. No, health is a dedication to rationality, a dedication to taking care of our mind, a dedication to taking care of our body, a dedication to taking care of our emotions. And we are not just alone in an island. That means taking care of those who are close to us in terms of, honesty, even if it hurts and so on, and spreading as much in good as we can, right? So that's what I think is the biggest thing we can learn from this. And of course, the side benefits are we have a happier life, happier life. And what this guy's talking about here, we find ourselves inside, and so we break through the layers of opinions and judgments that obscure happiness, right? So when we come up with all of our own stuff, which is through the process of rejecting our reason and just coming up with opinions, then we obscure the possibility of happiness. So you could say that the result of this is a happier life, a more fulfilled life, better quality of life. Steve here again, great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.